Hey, welcome back to the channel. We've got another video on this 2017 Cadillac XT5. Today we're going to be talking about how to take off the inside trim of the liftgate. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to do this, but in our case I'm going to be looking to see if there is some way that I can hardwire a dash cam back there. All right, before we get started on actually pulling off the interior trim, what I would highly recommend doing, while it's optional, is removing this and disconnecting this, this light. And the reason for that is there's actually going to be two wiring harnesses that go to this piece of trim that you're going to have to fight with once the trim comes down. And the one that goes to this light is really small and kind of fragile looking, so you'll save yourself some aggravation if you've already got this disconnected. So the way you're going to want to do that is to pull off this little cover first. Now, you might think this cover is required to pull off, to pull the trim off, but really what the purpose of this, I believe, is to actually, as an emergency release for the latch here. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think that's what that's actually for, because there's not anything under here that actually has to be undone to pull the trim off. So this is very easy to pull off. I can just grab my fingers and pull that off. And when you pull that off, if you look back in here on this side of this light, there's a release, a little plastic release, and you can take a screwdriver and press it in, and the light will come out. And there's some slack in the cable to undo it. And to undo the cable, you just press on this little release here, and the light comes off. And then I just stuff this back up in here so it doesn't get caught. You just have to remember when you put the trim back on to fish that back through. But that's going to make pulling this down a lot easier. There's going to be one more harness that goes to this button here, but it's a little bit easier to unplug once you get the trim down than trying to do ahead of time. All right, so there's really only one actual bolt that keeps this whole plastic piece of trim from coming off. And it is going to be found under this little panel near the handle. So first we're going to need to pull off that little plastic panel. And that comes off just like that. And then we just have a single 10mm bolt here. And that's it. The rest of it is just a matter of clips that hold it in place. All right, so you can see there's seams right here. So there's two pieces of plastic, one here and one here. However, it all comes off in one. They're joined in the back. They're clipped together in the back. So unlike the SRX, it's all going to come off together. I'll show you the back of this here in a minute so you kind of know what you're working with. But there are some clips that go in this direction and this direction. So you're going to kind of want to be aware of that. When you get this loose, these have to come in this direction to unclip. But this one generally comes down a lot easier than what I saw in the SRX. So I'll just start pulling this down. And then we do have this harness here for this button. And that's it. Now we have access to do whatever we need to do underneath this liftgate, and in this case it's going to be installing a dash camera. I couldn't really get a good view of this while I was unplugging it just because of where it is, but this is the harness that plugs into the liftgate switch, and basically the way it releases is on the side. On one side it has this little clip that you press on like that, and that's what releases it. It takes a good tug to pull it off, but as long as you get that pushed in and pull it up like that, it'll come undone. So I always think it's useful to give people an idea of what the back side of these things look like before you pull them down, just so you have a general idea of what you're fighting when you're pulling it down. So you can get a pretty good view of all of the clips here. And here's another angle from the other end. And just for reference, I'll give you some close-up views of what is underneath this panel. Got all kinds of wiring harnesses feeding the plethora of sensors that are underneath that panel. Okay, after discovering that there were no switched 12-volt power sources in the hatch that I was comfortable tapping into, decided to go the same route I went in my last vehicle. Ordered one of these fuse taps from Amazon, or a pack of 2 of them. The XT5 uses the micro 2 fuses, which are a lot smaller than what the SRX used, and any other vehicle I've used has always used either these ATO fuses or these mini fuses. It's the first time I've seen this micro 2 fuse. And AutoZone, Advanced, local places like that did not have this size fuse tap. So this here shows how these are laid out. And what I did is I tapped into the circuit from for the rear view cameras. It is the 6th one down there on the left column. You can see where I'm plugged into. And the hot side of this rail is on the left, so near the back of the vehicle. So that's the orientation of the fuse tap there. And I'll put a picture up here in a minute and highlight which fuse exactly I tied into, but it's a 10 amp fuse on that runs the rear cameras. So I've just tapped into that one and added another 10 amp that will separately run the dash camera off of this. And so now comes the fun part. Need to run that wire up here to the headliner and through this little loom here and into the hatch. All right, so you can see the wire fish through there. What I did is just popped this loose here. There's a couple of clips there, and there's a clip at the top of this. And that was enough to let me fish the wire through there, and then I'll just carefully route it up here and into the headliner, and then we'll have to get it over to here so we can fish it through that. All right, so let me get you caught up with where we're at here. I had pulled the wire, like I showed you earlier, up from the fuse box and through these panels on the left, and I'm actually going to end up using this wire, this black wire I have, and pull it down. I use the other wire to pull it down because I just didn't like that speaker wire I had on hand and bought some actual automotive wire for this. Using 18 gauge wire for this, which should be plenty. And so I've pulled this loose again, and so basically the way we've got to get this wire through here is need to loosen the headliner a little bit, which is no big deal. Once you have this loosened, if you look inside here, there's a clip right here, and so I just pushed a screwdriver there and very carefully, actually it's right about here, very carefully pop that clip loose. So that gives you enough access to kind of get fingers in here to route the wire. And what we've done here next is unclipped this loom that holds the wiring harness. So here's a better view of that. There's a plastic piece here that clips up inside the body here, and another one that clips inside the body here. So the easiest way is to unclip both of those. It is really important that you do that properly. There's clips on all four sides that have to be released. So if you just try to pry this out, they will break. Someone had already been in here and already broken half the tabs on this one. So that's something I'm going to have replaced at some point. But once you get those out, then you can kind of stretch this straight. And what I've done is I just used a piece of wire hanger here and taped my wire to one side of the loom here. Or I'm sorry, to one side of the hanger here. And now we should be able to pull this through. This is probably the trickiest part, is getting this all set up to pull the wire through. And there we go, slow and easy does it. And so now I'm going to tie this off to that existing wire that I ran down here and pull that down. And now I just need to fish it up. This wiring harness goes up through here and comes out here, so I'll fish it out that way. All right, I've got the wire routed up through the body of the liftgate here. You can see the black wire, and I just zip tied it to the existing harness so it doesn't rub up against the metal opening there. And just found a zip tie I forgot to clip. So we've got that hot wire going this direction, which I'll show you why in a minute. And here is the neutral wire, the ground wire, which I'll show you where that goes in a second. And so I've also got this USB cable here. That's for the dash camera. I left some slack, and that's going to go over the liftgate trim here in a moment. So over here, there's already a bunch of grounds. So I just tied into one of those with one of these handy clips. Didn't have something big enough to fit over that bolt, but that'll be just fine for the ground. So all three of those wires are zip tied to the existing harness. And the reason I'm having them going all the way here is because we've got some nice cavities over here, and that's where I've got the power adapter tucked away for the dash cam. So that's the power adapter that came with the dash cam. It's designed to go into a 12-volt outlet in a car, and I've just hardwired into it. And I used some double-sided foam tape to stick it up in there where it won't rattle. And so everything is zip tied in real nice. And I've tested it. We've got power to it. So now it's just a matter of putting it all back together and mounting the dash camera. All right, I finally have that all snapped back in. I will say that this one is quite a bit more annoying to get it snapped in than the SRX. It was kind of nice having that piece split into two. So now we've got the USB power for the dash cam and plenty of slack here so that I can mount it wherever and tuck the excess back there in the back. All right, I've got it stuck up on there and the cable routed, and I think that came out pretty good. And so now the camera will come on when the car started and turn off when it's not, or when it shuts off. And on my last vehicle, I actually stuck it to the plastic trim, but I got a lot of camera shake. So this time I stuck it to the window itself, and hopefully that will make for smoother footage. All right, everyone, that does it for this video. I hope it was helpful to someone, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. We'll have many more videos, I'm sure, on the Cadillac XT5, and we've got more on the way for the Cadillac CTS as well. And of course, we have a pretty big backlog of SRX videos as well. So appreciate you checking out the channel, and you guys have a great